You're listening to Boobies and Newbies. Happy holidays, everybody, and welcome to a special holiday edition of Boobies and Newbies, the podcast that asks novice romance readers to think outside the dick in a box and brave the unbridled world of erotica. I'm your host, Kelly Reynolds, and today's romance review marks the 5th episode in Boobies and Newbies 12 Days of Boobsmas. That's right, we're almost halfway through this year's Boobsmas festivities, and I hope y'all are enjoying it so far. Be sure to tune in all month long for more podcast episodes, and there's still plenty to come. We still have a few giveaway opportunities, so be sure to check those out across the Boobies and Newbies social media channels. That's at Boobies Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and Twitter because I refuse to call it X, and at Real Kelly Ray on TikTok. You can always catch up on the first few episodes of the 12 Days of Boobsmas on your favorite podcast platform or on our website, boobiesandnewbies.com. For the 5th day of Boobsmas, we're talking about some of the best things Boobsmas has to offer. Small town bartenders, long distance love, and plenty o' sex on countertops. As I mentioned, there are still a few Boobsmas giveaway opportunities to go, and for the 5th day of Boobsmas giveaway winner, I've got a copy of today's book to give away. Now, before we get started, I'm going to take a quick moment to shamelessly plug my holiday romances, Meet Me in Los Feliz and Venice Actually, both of which are available in Kindle Unlimited. If you are looking for holiday romance with fierce, fat, and fabulous heroines, and the cinnamon roll heroes of their dreams, you might consider checking out the Holidays in LA series. If you feel like making this podcaster's holidays a little bit merrier, you might consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can also join the Boobies and Newbies Patreon family for as little as $1 a month and have instant access to bonus podcast clips, our monthly Boobies Unlimited book club chat, and so much more. As always, you will find links for all of the above in today's show notes as well as on our website. And now, on to today's Boobsmas extravaganza. Joining me today for the 5th day of Boobsmas is returning guest Brianna. She's also the owner and founder of Wicked Words, an online, highly curated bookstore and community that specializes in selling wickedly good romance novels for modern romance readers. Welcome back, Brianna.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back.
It's great to have you. Now, you have to tell us, as somebody who has their own book sales business, what does the holiday season look like for you? Do you sell a lot of holiday books? Do you put together any special holiday packages?
Yeah, we don't sell a ton of holiday books, in part because I always feel anxious about the risk of bringing them in and then being stuck with them. So we bring in a small amount, but really what we sell a lot of is our holiday countdown bundles where we individually wrap books, and you can get 8 or 12 for Hanukkah or for Christmas or just because you want them. And we pick them out for you based on whatever you tell us about what you want and then send those out. That is my favorite part of the holidays for us.
It's like an advent calendar, but for romance novels.
Yeah.
I love that. And with all of the advent calendars that are out there, I've been eyeing the ones that have cheese. My mom messaged me and said, does that mean there's a butter one? Which I don't think there is. But you know what? Maybe there is. And by this time next year, if there isn't, there will be. There's also ones for wine and beauty products. So of course it makes sense to have one for books.
I mean, I feel like who doesn't love opening up things over and over again? I feel like that's just the best.
Well, and my favorite thing about advent calendars specifically is that you actually get to open presents leading up to the holiday, whether it's Hanukkah or Christmas, whatever it is you celebrate. I love that it's not that you have to wait for, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, I'm not a patient person, but I love that you don't have to wait for one specific occasion to do it. It's sort of this nice build up to that occasion.
Absolutely.
Well, that's exciting. Where can the good folks listening at home find Wicked Words so that they can make their purchases and, you know, throw you a follow, all the fun things?
Yeah, so we're on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. All of those are at Shop Wicked Words, and then our website is shopwickedwords.com.
Amazing. Now, I know you've been on Boobies and Newbies before, but this is your first time on the 12 Days of Boobsmas. So I have to tell you that along with talking about holiday romance books, we also like to talk about holiday traditions, favorite eats, treats, etc. So do you have a favorite holiday tradition that you celebrate?
I just really love decorating for holidays. So it was like always a tradition growing up that my mom and I, for every holiday throughout the year, no matter how big or small, would like make a day of it. And we'd turn on music and just like blast music through the house and decorate everything and just like hang out together. And that was always my favorite part of the holidays growing up. But I have to say, we were talking about like other holiday traditions before we got on air, and I am really in love with Lady Krampus like lore that we discovered.
I'm so glad that you brought this up. I'm so glad, because I'm sorry, this is my mistake for us having a conversation before the podcast recording actually begun. And here I was thinking that sadly the people listening weren't going to get to hear the story about Lady Krampus. So please continue.
We did a holiday market for Krampusnacht in Bremerton, and they had some Lady Krampus performers there who handed out little cards with like their story on them, and I discovered that Lady Krampus is apparently the person that takes away all of the bad men to protect the women and children. Instead of taking away the bad children like Krampus does, she scoops up all of the bad men so that like the women and children can enjoy a world without all of the bad men.
Bless this bitch. Like, can you imagine? It's just, if this isn't, and I know people are going to think, Kelly, how did you bring this one back to the patriarchy? Because I do in every episode. Like, it doesn't matter what we're talking about, but can you imagine, like, even when it comes to Krampus and Lady Krampus, so this is still Christmassy. Like, I am still keeping it in the 12 Days of Boobsmas sphere.
Oh, yeah.
We had this figure, Krampus, that people have known about for, hundreds of years at this point?
Yeah.
Who steals children in the night, the bad children, steals them and, brings them to hell, or whatever the lore around Krampus is. And then we create Lady Krampus, or she creates herself, who am I to assume?
Yeah.
And her, it just is like, if this is not like the picture perfect example of like what the patriarchy does, because here the woman is coming out here and saving women and children from bad men, and the bad man is just snatching babies. Like, it's just like such a wild dichotomy.
Yeah, for sure. But I am obsessed with that now, and I feel like I need to incorporate that into my future holidays somehow, because
I
just
agree.
too fun.
Are you going to be a Lady Krampus? Is that what it's going to be?
Oh boy, I don't know. The Krampus performers are like serious business. They get like really, really elaborate costumes and really, really devoted to the craft. And I don't know if I could ever be on the level that they are. I feel slightly intimidated, but that would be very fun.
I don't know why I didn't know that this was a thing. Like, because I used to go to, when I grew up in the San Francisco area, I would go to the Dickens Fair every year, and people get really into it and dress in their, Dickensian garb and use their fake ass British accents. And I loved it. Like, I love a good role playing, cosplaying, opportunity. There's a reason people love the Renaissance Fair, but I had never heard of people cosplaying. I don't even know, like performing as Krampus or Lady Krampus. Like that's news to me.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this into my life. I'll go with you next year.
Absolutely. Yes.
We're basically neighbors, so we're going to make it happen. Well, I hope that you add specifically Lady Krampus into your holiday tradition somehow. You're going to have to report back and let us all know how you do that. But I'm rooting for you. Like, cue the Tyra
Thanks.
Banks meme. We were all rooting for you. So I'm excited to hear how that happens. But for the time being, let me go ahead and introduce today's holiday romance read, and Brianna and I will get started talking about it. Today's reading selection is Almost Perfect by E.F. Dodd. It was published in November 2023. It's available for free with Kindle Unlimited, and it's also the third book, she asks with a question mark, in EF's Not Looking for Love series, which I just have to say, I love the title of the series at large, because Not Looking for Love series is the perfect description of my life, but it's also a lot of the romance that I like to read. Like, I love to read romance where the characters are so ambivalent towards love, or just like, oh, I'm not looking for it. I'm too busy for love. I love that trope. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. And it tells you exactly what you're getting with the series name.
Maybe that's it too, because I mean, obviously you and I know, and everybody who reads romance knows, that you're in store for a happily ever after, or at least a happily for now by the end of a romance novel. But there is something about this, and I think I've talked about this with Bree and Aaron, who host the Categorically Romance podcast, especially when it comes to category romance. I love that there's so much in the title alone that they tell you, like, the tycoon's secret baby. Like, I know what that book is going to be about. And
Absolutely.
if your series is called Not Looking for Love, I know what this series is going to be about.
Yes, I love that.
Well, let me go ahead and give everyone the synopsis for Almost Perfect, and then we will get down to it. So, here we go. All he wants for Christmas is her. Dave Richardson's life hasn't turned out the way he thought it would. He never expected to slink back to his hometown of Rochester 2 years ago and take a bartending job, nor did he expect he'd still be tending said bar. Everyone thought he would achieve great things. Hell, he believed he would achieve great things. But when Vivian Walters walked into his bar wearing that dress on a random Wednesday night, I love how specific this is, things were looking up for the first time in a long time. And they looked even better when he got her number. Even if it was obvious she didn't see things between them lasting beyond her night out on Sunday. Oh, okay. I was like, wait, I thought it was Wednesday. But no, it's the rest of that week. If he wanted to keep a woman like her, he'd need to become the man he was supposed to be, and fast. If there was one thing Vivian V. Walters liked almost as much as designer heels, it was checklists. They'd served her well her entire life. First with college, then med school, landing the perfect internship, followed by an even better residency, and finally, her dream job. So far, her checklist for the perfect man hadn't panned out the same way, but that didn't mean she would lose her ever-loving mind and chuck it all out the window for a hot, sweaty weekend with a bartender, right? No matter how good he looked in those worn jeans or how his blonde hair curled just so at the nape of his neck, damn, like, this is the most specific synopsis I've ever read for for a book. Like, I mean, we know how
tells you exactly what you're getting.
The way his hair curls at the nape of his neck. Oh, here you go. And the next line is, or the way his deep brown gaze made her stomach somersault. I was like, the only thing missing is somebody's eye color or how they smell. And there you go. We got it. Yep. And even if she gave into her purely physical attraction to him, it wouldn't be anything other than a fling, would it? It is. Spoiler alert.
Honestly.
Right? I have to say, there's a lot of things that I really do love about this book. I will tell everybody, I was not expecting it to take place across so much time. So even though there are holiday celebrations like within the book, The book starts in like, it's October, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so because I think
Well, it's a
about
Wednesday.
50%
We know
in
that.
they have that it's like Halloween. So I think I
Yeah.
imagine that they start like early October. I would have
Hmm.
to I honestly have the memory of a goldfish and didn't
No,
even remember when you were reading the synopsis and you said that it was Wednesday through Sunday. I was like, wait, I thought it was like literally just the weekend, like maybe
right.
Friday through Sunday, and this explains so much of like my confusion when
You're
reading it,
like,
and
that
I
was a lot that happened over the
should have
course of
paid
3 days.
closer attention to the dates because she does put the dates in there. So like I should have been on that, and I was not.
That's
But
okay.
yeah,
That's totally fine. No, and so all that to say, I just wanted to preface this by saying, because I know there are so many holiday romances out, and I feel like it's actually, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I feel like there's more out this year than like previous years past. And look, I am not complaining about that. I am a
oh
ho
no,
ho for holiday romances, and I will be reading them well into probably January or February. But all that to say that when you are, kind of picking out the holiday romances you want to read, there are some people who are looking specifically for that wintry Christmas vibe. And yes, this is Rochester, so we do get some of the, snowy vibes later on. But the, first, oh God, I mean, it's more than the first half of it. It's not Christmas. It's not wintry
yeah.
whatsoever. So I just wanted
I
people to be aware of that going in.
I think it's a good fit for like either early in the season or someone who's like maybe not really sure if holiday romance is their thing, but they want to
Mm-hmm.
try one. Or people who just love holidays in general, like not specific to the winter holidays, because you do get to
Yes.
see like so many holidays since it
Mm-hmm.
spans that time, which is kind of fun and different when usually holiday romance like equates to Hanukkah or Christmas.
Yes. This would have been the book that I would have recommended to people to pick up like after Halloween, to sort
Yes,
of like segue into the holidays.
absolutely.
And you get a little bit of fall, you get a little bit of Thanksgiving, and then you head into the winter holidays. So that being said, I'm sure there are plenty of people who are also like sick of reading snowy, blowy Christmas
Yes.
romances by this point in December. So if you are looking to step away from that, then this might be the book for you.
Absolutely.
We're all different. We all have different, desires. I totally get it. The thing that I really liked about this book, and I think I've started one of the other books in E.F. Dodd's series, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I've finished it yet. What I like about this book is how real like they're messy. Like I like how realistic and messy the characters are. It's very millennial. Like, I mean, how many people do we know who have had to move back home, or for whatever reason it might be, usually money, or to like help out family, and they are maybe in a position that they didn't really picture themselves in at 28, 29, 35, like whatever it might be. Like, and so in that way, I found Dave's story arc very relatable. And
Yes.
V is kind of the opposite, but also like very relatable, because
Yeah.
I think especially as women, we tend to kind of like set these very specific goals for ourselves, and like we have to do this, we have to do this by this time. And she's done that. It's kind of that idea of like, I've crossed off all the things on my list professionally speaking, but like I don't have anybody to share them with, and like what comes next. And I think that's also a very relatable idea.
Yeah, I was definitely going to bring up Dave later because, as you said, I very much related to him. And I think it made me feel like a little bit protective of him at times. But also,
Yeah, sweet baby Dave.
I do think that, like, in some ways, V is, like, obviously opposite of him. Like, that is very much how it's written, but is also kind of like what a lot of people thought maybe their life would look like, and then ended up
Yeah.
having it look more like what Dave went through, which I think is like an interesting combination to have in there.
Yeah, it's kind of like two ends of the spectrum. Like it very much gives me vibes of like when you go to your high school reunion, which
Oh
I
my
have
god.
not gone to.
I'm not going, but every movie tells me exactly this.
Right? Like, and it's true. Like, I will say Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion is one of my all-time favorite movies. And there, you know what, now that I think of it, there is either, I don't know if it's Hallmark or Lifetime, but one of them has a Christmas movie that
Oh, I believe
also is a high school reunion.
I believe it. Makes sense.
Yeah. But I mean, it's true. Like, when you do think about going to a reunion in your hometown, and, you know, maybe it's 10 years later, so you'd be like 28, maybe it's 15 years later and you're in your early 30s. I do feel like there is usually kind of like these expectations of like, you've either made it, you've done all these things, you have a family, you have a job that's amazing, you have a house, da da da, or you're like living at home. And like, that's bottom tier, like, not in my opinion, but like that's
Agreed.
just like how people look at it. And I think Dave's great. I think in some ways he very much has it together more than V. And in other ways she does.
Yeah, and I think like also V talks at some point about I'm pretty sure, again, I could be just my memory, but I think she talks about how she's like literally always wanted to do this or something similar. Like she's known what she wanted to do and then she went out there and did it. And I feel like that's another one where like I think we're kind of taught that that's how the world works growing up.
Wouldn't that
like,
be nice?
and then we get there, and for some of us that is how it works, and then for a lot of us you like change majors 500 times and maybe you drop out and come back or just leave or change careers, you know, a few years in,
Yes.
or like 8 times throughout your life, whatever it may be, which is a lot more similar to Dave. But I think there was at least one point in time for all of us where we were like, this is what I'm doing. And it's just going to be that thing. And I know it. And that's what's going to happen. Like V.
Yeah, it was funny because I feel like in a lot of ways, I connected to both of them, like in a lot of ways. And I feel like usually when I read a romance, one of them, I will be like, oh my God, this is me. Like, you know, and this one, it was both of them in that I totally understand his, you know, trying to kind of like figure things out. And I think this is a very real, especially because of COVID. I think this has sent a lot of people in their 30s, 40s, and even 50s into a different, like a career change, a move across the country, across the world, just sort of like kind of questioning like, well, why was I doing those things? Like, am I like V in that I've always known what I wanted to do and I went after that? Because I am similar in that regards to her as well. Or was I doing these things just because that's what I was told I was supposed to do? And I love when characters and when people in real life question things. I always want to question, why is this the way it is? Why do I feel this way? Where did these feelings come from? And I think it's important to see books with characters who are also having those questions, because then it helps us feel like this is a completely normal thing that we can question.
And I also love that they're both, at least from what we see on the page, supposedly really good at their jobs. So it's not like they're questioning things because they're like struggling and not very good at doing the thing they're doing. Like it's for other external reasons, which I also feel like is really real and relatable for a lot of people, that like you can be really good at something and still not be sure if you want to do it in Dave's case, or like still not totally love the environment you're in, that sort of thing.
Well, and I have to say, this book also, people who have listened to this podcast know that for a long time I have said, especially when it comes to holiday romance, and especially when it comes to holiday romance set in a small town, I get so tired of seeing the driven woman from the city with a job she loves and the apartment that's incredible. I get so tired of seeing her come to a small town and then leave her entire life behind. And so this is a book that does not do that. Instead, we have this, you know, fling to lovers. We have the two of them having this almost week-long sexcapade, I guess, and then basically trying to figure it out. How do we make this work? I have my job. I'm incredible at my job. I'm not leaving that. Like, I got all the things I want. Why should I have to give that up? And, you know, especially for a guy that I've only known for a few days.
Yes.
So again, I very, very much appreciated that. There are emails. There is, sexy phone calls made, which I will get to my sexcerpt in a moment because that does have to do with that. But I just love the way that we navigated through a long distance couples relationship because, again, I feel like that's not something that I see in a lot of romance.
Mm-hmm.
That brings me to my sexcerpt.
I was going to say you should just go straight into it. Take us there.
Yeah. Since we're here, might as well continue. I have to start here because the other, you'll know exactly the part of this that I very much appreciate when I say it. Okay, so this is when they are having phone sex. And I'll start from Dave said, "Get what you need, Doc." Her face went hot as she opened the drawer and pulled out the Vibe and the lube, carefully keeping both out of frame. "Okay," she said, shutting the drawer. "I'm good." That was a lie. She was not, in fact, good. She was more nervous than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. But she wasn't going to let that keep her from experiencing this with Dave. If she could get over this initial reluctance, she knew things would be fine. Better than fine, if FaceTime Dave were anywhere close to in-person Dave when it came to knowing what she wanted and her body needed. He'd asked her to let him take the lead, so all she had to do was give herself over to that, to trust him with the mechanics of this and allow him to guide her through it. She could because she did trust him, as evidenced by doing this in the first place. Oh, I liked this line that he said to her a few paragraphs down. "When you bite your lip like that, it gives me ideas, Doc," Dave said, his voice rougher now. And then they just, I mean, I could keep going. He tells her to shimmy that lace down. "Let me see you." It goes into, them having virtual over the phone sex. And I just loved it because they mentioned lube. And like everybody who listens to Boobies and Newbies knows how much I get so excited when they mention lube in romance.
Yes. I love it. Also, that long-tailed cat in the rocking chairs line.
Good one.
There are so many great lines in this, but like just sprinkled throughout, like one of the last lines you mentioned, I was like, when you led into that one, I was thinking about how that is one thing that stuck out to me was there was a lot of great like little like one-liners or like small dialogue exchanges that were really just like spot on. And
I really liked this scene because like this was one of those moments where like V, I have trouble like kind of just like giving up control. Like it is such a huge place of vulnerability to be able to like trust somebody else with your body in general, but like especially if it's something that like you've never done before. And yes, it's over a phone, so like there is like a safety measure there, but there's also so much trust that goes into something like that. And so having to like let go of that control and trust somebody else to, not only handle your pleasure, but like, you're doing something that you've never done. And that's scary. It's exciting, scary too. But yeah, I thought that was a great moment. Again, I feel like there's just so much realism in like the moments that they share with each other, as well as like the situation that they're both in.
Yeah, like that part about the trust also stuck out to me. And I was realizing as we were talking about that like the portion that I highlighted, or a lot of my highlights of small quotes and things, were kind of along that same line, not necessarily specific to trust, but like that spoke to that like kind of deeper part of the relationship, which is surprising for a book that like starts out with a fling, right? Like a lot of times those kinds of books like are so fun to read and I still love them and still 5-star them or whatever. But then you like finish it and you're like, yeah, I mean, if we're being honest, like I don't really know how deep the relationship, like we were told they like fell in love and it was great. But like now that I'm not in it and just like vibing with all of the warm fuzzies of it, if I'm thinking logically about it, like I didn't really see much of their actual like relationship or feelings towards each other or how well they really knew each other. And this book gives you a lot more of all of those things, whether it's talking about how much they trust each other or demonstrating how well they like understand one another. You get a lot more of that in this one.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad that you brought that up because I will say there's definitely been books in the past that we've even talked about for Boobies and Newbies where it's a fling to lovers and the whole book just feels like a nonstop fuck fest. And you're like, well, this is
Yeah,
great for what it is. But at the same time,
absolutely.
when I sit down to read a romance novel, I want to see them fall in love. Like, and if I'm not getting the love out of this relationship, it feels more like erotica to me, where it's just this like erotic sexual experience, which I also love to read, but I want to see them fall in love and not
Yes.
just be told that they're in love all of a sudden after like 8 days of blowjobs.
Yes, which can I read a little excerpt as well because I
Oh,
feel like that
please
gets to what
do.
we're talking about. I loved the scene where they're in like the closet or butler's pantry or whatever it is.
On the countertop, because they're always on
Yep,
countertops having
yep,
sex.
and I was struggling to like find even what to highlight because it's so long and slow burny, but like in the best way. Like that's kind of what I loved about it. But I like this portion in particular feels really relevant. But Dave held back, kissing her chin, then lifting his head. His eyes were so dark she could barely see his pupils. Doc, he said, his fingers curling into her sides, if I kiss you the way I want to right now, the way you need, then everyone out there will know exactly what we're doing in here. In that moment, absolutely zero part of V cared about anything outside their private space. She cupped his face in her hands and said, what if I said I didn't care? He turned his head to kiss her palm and said, I'd know that it wasn't true because I pay attention to what matters to you, Doc. You blushed when I kissed you in the airport earlier. Privacy is important to you, which means what happens behind this door needs to stay behind this door.
Mm.
And then she has like an epiphany of being like, oh my God, he actually has been paying attention to me and like who I am. And then it gets super spicy after that and it's wonderful. But that like moment I
Yeah.
loved and also kind of wasn't expecting because again, I was like, fling or like in a pantry at a party, like it's just gonna be high octane spice and like we'll get to the feelings later. And instead we got both, which was so fun.
He's an ooey gooey soft boy and I love him so
Absolutely.
much. It reminds me of this meme that I saw the other day where it was like, men are always complaining that women don't know what they want and blah, 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 blah. Women just want a man who will listen to them. Like, they literally
Yes.
just want somebody who will actively listen and respond to what they're saying. In fact, I feel like recently there was a TikTok challenge where it was like girlfriends or wives with their male partners and they would just tell them like an innocuous story that had like, it would just be like about how they went to the store and like they were out of tomatoes or like, you know, something really boring. And the test was to see how engaged in active listening their partner was. And so if he was responding with like, oh, that's interesting, or, you know, oh, so then what did you do? And like like giving verbal responses and asking questions and, you know, responding with, oh man, that sucks, you know, that he was actually listening versus like somebody who's just like not saying anything and then afterwards it's like, I'm sorry, what did you say? Like, huh? Like, so
Yeah.
it's so funny because like to me, I'm like, that should be the bare minimum in a relationship. And here you have it
Yes.
between two characters who, yes, are fictional, but who have only had like a fling for like a few weeks and they're
Yes.
able to give it to each other. So what's the problem with men in real life not being able to
Yeah.
give that attention?
And I loved that you kind of get the sense, like, I don't think she ever explicitly says it, but this is my take on what I was reading, is that V, like, hasn't really had that before. Like, she's
Yeah.
shocked that he's demonstrating that, not just because she's like, wow, this was just supposed to be a fling and you're some stranger that I just met. How do you already know me this well?
Right.
Like, there's a little bit of that. But I think a bigger part of that is like, oh, well, like everyone I've ever been with hasn't actually bothered to care what I like or noticed what I do and don't like or responded to anything I share about what I do or don't want.
And you know why, in my mind, why that happens for her so far is because all the men she's dated had a checklist for themselves and she just checked off a box. She wasn't a human being. They didn't care about her thoughts and feelings. They didn't care about her personhood. It was very much about, you fulfill this item on my checklist. And because, you know, Dave is so far from her idea of like who her potential partner would probably be. He ends up, you know, checking off all the boxes without her even realizing it. And it's just, it's a good, you know, example of like, I don't even want to say like opposites attract. Like, I mean, they are opposites in a lot of ways, but at the same time.
But also kind of not.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I did enjoy this. And like I said, I think, you know, the cover is a Christmas tree and them decorating. I do think, I don't know, having now read this, I don't know if I would call this a holiday romance, and that's only because of how much ground the book covers. I think of it kind of like, you know how sometimes people fight about holiday movies and they'll be like, oh, Die Hard's a Christmas movie, and other people will say, no, Die Hard's a movie that takes place at Christmas. And I as much as I think of Die Hard as a Christmas movie, I do acknowledge that other side of the argument and understand it. So that's kind of how this book was for me, was yes, there is Christmas and winter holidays within the book. Do I think of it as a holiday romance now that I've read it? I don't know, maybe, but I would, you know, still recommend it nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Okay, I know normally this is the time where we would play Tit or Tat, the holiday this or that game we have established here on Boobies and Newbies. However, because Dave is a bartender and because we have Brianna here who has her own bookstore, I think it would be great for us to play a little something else. And look, I don't know if this is really a game so much as it is, I'm going to read you a few things from this article I found. And you're going to, maybe if one of them jumps out to you and you have a book recommendation based off of that, fantastic. If not, we will just, you know, have shits and giggles.
Sounds good.
The title of this article is The Ultimate Holiday Rom-Com Drinking Game from junkie.com. And I just, as I was reading this, I was thinking, okay, yes, I know so many people who read romance are also avid holiday romance movie watchers, specifically on networks like Hallmark and Lifetime. But I do think a lot of these could also be applied towards a holiday romance reading game as well. So, not that I'm advocating you get sloshed while reading your next holiday rom-com book.
Do it with hot cocoa. It'll be fine.
Exactly.
Just get a sugar high.
'Tis the season. Okay, so we will start with, and mind you, this article is very long, so I'm just going to give you a few from each category. You know, there's like take a sip when, take 2 sips when, finish your drink when, but I will,
Oh boy.
I know, dangerous. Finish your hot cocoa. I will link the full article, though, in today's show notes, so if people want to go back and play it with their family, friends, etc. during the holiday season, fantastic. So we are going to start with take a sip when, they're going to say movie. I'm just going to say, I'll say movie or book. The movie or book title features a holiday pun.
Oh my gosh. I love a good pun.
I do too.
It's not really a pun, but I've been very excited about 8 Kinky Nights of Hanukkah.
Yeah.
Having that in the shop this year. I've been so excited about, even though I know it's not particularly punny, but I love that one.
There's a lot out there, though. Like, there are a lot of punny.
Talk about swoon. Her Santa baby posts, there were some really good ones. Santa's coming to town. I was like, I need to download that immediately.
Yes.
Immediately.
Yes. Well, you know what's funny is like...
And Big Nick Energy is the other one.
Yes.
Big Nick Energy. I was like, sign me up.
That was the one that I thought of, was like the play on words for Big Nick Energy. So yeah, no, there's so many. I mean, even the ones that I picked for my holiday series, they all are a play off of holiday movies that already exist, paired with locations in Los Angeles. So like, I know they're not punny, but there's a lot of romance, holiday romance titles that are just a play on words for something that already is a thing as well. So the movie, this is still Take a Sip If. Take a Sip If. The movie takes place in a fictional European country.
No, there's more sips. There's more levels to this.
Oh, it says in parentheses, take an extra sip if the name of the country ends in via.
Yes, this is so spot on for like Hallmark movies. I feel like I haven't read a book yet, although I'm sure there are so many. I just haven't read one myself that has this in it. But like the movies, man, all of those like princess ones.
Yes, the ones with Vanessa Hudgens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I will say the only one I can think of, although I think it's an African country, is doesn't Alyssa Cole have a royal romance series? I know it's not holidays, but I want to say that those take place in a fictional country in Africa.
Yep, because the first, well, now I'm questioning if it's the first one, but A Princess in Theory is the one where there's like an email from a prince, which is like the classic like scam thing, but then it's not. It really is a prince emailing her.
Okay, the next 4 I am going to read in rapid succession because I think you could find these in almost every holiday romance book written, as well as holiday romance movies. So a dead parent or grandparent is mentioned. I would also add like partner, like my deceased wife or something like that. Someone spills their hot cocoa. Someone wears red, green, or flannel. The leads almost kiss, but don't.
I don't think you'd make it through this game. That's so many. Are these sips, or is this like a finish your drink? If we're finishing our drinks on these, we're...
Yeah, these are just sips. And I mean, oh God, I'm just thinking about all of the holiday romance I've read where there's a child involved and how that kid is always like cock blocking them every time they try to kiss. Like that alone would get you hammered. So I'm gonna skip over. Oh nope, the characters are snowed in. Okay, I couldn't leave take a sip until I did the characters are snowed in. So,
oh my gosh.
On that note, do you have a snowed in holiday romance you want to recommend?
Kiss Her Once for Me was one of my favorite romance reads of last year, and it is absolutely the like snowed in snowy romance, but also so relatable as far as snowy romances go, coming from living in a place that doesn't get a lot of snow and also doesn't have the infrastructure to deal with it when we do get it. Truly
it
everything. You don't get to do anything where I live when it snows because no one is prepared. And she wrote that realistically. She did not try and like magic away the consequences of snow.
Nope. That's, by the way, that's Kiss Her Once for Me by Allison Cochran. And we have talked to Allison on this podcast. I know that Allison is a local to me author because she's just across the bridge in Vancouver, Washington. We did talk about that book on last year's 12 Days of Boobsmas. So if you want to hear all about it, you can tune back into that episode. I am going to skip to Take 2 Sips When. So this first one I think is also very chronic for holiday romance as well. The lead has a Christmassy name like Noel, Holiday, Chrissy, Chris, Holly, or Nick.
I was waiting for Holly. I was like, if Holiday's in there but Holly's not, I'm gonna riot.
I think you could do Holiday too, though, because I've definitely read Holiday.
Yeah. Yes.
And how many books have you read with Noel in them?
And I am just excited that Big Nick energy is still relevant to this one. I think that means it needs to be at the top of my TBR this year.
I like that. Oh, I lied earlier when I said add a dead spouse to the dead grandparent or parent. They have Take 2 Sips when a dead spouse is mentioned. So that was a separate category.
That's a step up. More intense than...
Oh my God. Take 2 sips when someone wears cute Christmas pajamas. Okay, I am going to say I have to plug my own book, Meet Me in Los Feliz, because there is a scene where they go to a holiday party and he wears a reindeer Christmas onesie that he later has like dirty sex in, which it's so funny. The only reason I'm saying this is because it cracks me up. I know that authors in general should not read their reviews, but I have to tell you, there's one person who read Meet Me in Los Feliz and they were just so angry about him having sex in his reindeer onesie in their review, and it just cracked me up.
Wait, what?
So I don't know. I just, this one, like, this review stands out to me so vividly. Because it cracked me up how specific they were about, like, oh my God, I couldn't take it seriously with this man in his onesie, da-da-da. And then I kid you not, this year, I'm pretty sure, I didn't confirm it, but I'm pretty sure that same person still read Venice Actually and left a review. And the only reason I think it's the same person is that in their review of Venice Actually, they mentioned at the very end, at least I didn't have to read some guy fucking her wearing a Christmas onesie, because that scarred me.
I'm sorry, but I feel like if you are reading a holiday romance, for it to be so intensely serious and never have any goofy moments, I feel like you're gonna have a hard time. I feel like that's part of the joy of holiday stuff, is you get to see people being silly and in their normal space. Like, of course you would wear Christmas, but like, you probably, if you celebrated Christmas growing up, you probably got so many pairs of Christmas pajamas throughout like your lifespan that you like, that is, it's an opportunity to just be silly and be a kid again and have fun.
I agree. And I'm sorry, that just, it cracks me up. Like, and look, I am not shading this person in any way. Truly, this is like, I am hoping by all measures that they read the book next year that is going to be in this series as well. And they say something about his onesie pajamas from the first book. Like, I am so hoping that we go full circle with all three books and this one reviewer talking about the Christmas onesie, like, because it's just so funny
it's
to me.
Tradition now.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But also, I think we all have had books where we're like, this is such a small thing, but like, I cannot let it go. I think everyone's had a moment like that in a book, and it's different moments for everyone. So I feel like that is also just like a core reading experience.
Yeah, for me, it's usually when people have car sex and I'm trying to figure out how in the hell they got into that position, like in the car. That's a favorite for sure.
I'm sorry, did you do that without honking the horn 6 times on accident and alerting the whole neighborhood? I don't know.
I was like, I thought you said he was 6'4" and driving a Hyundai. Like, there's no room for that. What are you talking about? Okay, a few more for you. We have, this is still under Take 2 Sips When. There's a meet cute involving the characters literally bumping into each other.
Oh, yes.
Take your pick. In fact, I think we've mentioned 2 this year on 12 Days of Boobsmas alone. So there you go.
Yeah, and not even holiday specific. I feel like you see that trope in so many rom-com contemporaries. Like, the list would be long.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Here's a couple of my favorites. Take 2 Sips When there's a token annoying / cute child or whimsical / grumpy old person.
Oh my god. This is not holiday-y at all, but so we do Blushworthy Book Club, and it's like a choose your own adventure situation where you can read any one of our recommendations or none of them, and you can tell us whatever you want to tell us about it. And it's just really an opportunity to just chat about romance and drink beer because it's at a brewery, or they have other options. But we read Hazel Mack's Getting It On with Gargoyles. And the gargoyle child and single dad in that series, he's such a grump at the start, and the child is endlessly cute. And he's just like, the kid is just throwing himself into every situation in the book. And at one point, I like almost started crying because the kid was like saying the sweetest things ever. And
well, that's refreshing. I am still scarred by, speaking of being scarred by things in holiday romances, I am still scarred by, and I'll have to look back for the title in our previous Boobsmas episodes, and I'll be sure to put it in the show notes, but I will never forget. We read a cowboy themed holiday romance a few years ago for the 12 Days of Boobsmas, and it was also a period piece. I think it took place in like early 1900s or late 1800s in America, cowboys. And if those were not the two most cartoonish, precocious, like, children I've ever read in romance. Like, they said things like, Daddy, but what is the meaning of Christmas? Like, I mean, it was like what? It was like reading an SNL sketch about children in a Christmas movie. Like, it just was,
God.
It was so much. I will never get over those kids.
I just loved in Hazel Max Getting On with the Gargoyles, one of the scenes, the little kid is like, here's one of the women is going on a date and he wants to know what a date is. And the dad is
Cute.
like, get out now before I have to explain. Like, you can avoid having to answer that question if, like, you leave right now for your date while I'm talking to him. And then the kid immediately comes back to her and is like, I don't think Dad's going to actually tell me what a date is. So could you actually tell me what a date is? And, like, the perceptiveness for this kid to, like, know instantly, yeah, Dad's not wanting to answer this question and is really uncomfortable. I want answers.
Damn, I'm like, I still have holiday romance to read, and you're out here, like, trying to make me read some, like, gargoyle. But, like, oh, God, I'm going to have to read this now.
It's for, like, your post-holiday, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Follow up those Christmas and Hanukkah reads with a single father gargoyle romance. Of course!
Yeah. When when you're feeling like you've read a lot of holiday romance in a row and you need a break so that you can power through the rest of them.
Gargoyles.
Throw in Hazel Max Getting It On with the Gargoyles.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. One more take two sips when, because it applies to the gargoyles as well. And that is two characters start out hating each other, but end up loving each other. I do like this one as well. That's the drama and conflict arises from real estate negotiations.
Oh my gosh. Because small towns, they always are getting eaten up by those big corporations.
Yep. Eat the rich, friends. Merry Christmas. And then these are the finish your drink when.
Oh boy.
Finish your drink when someone drinks cider or eggnog. And I feel like the only reason this one's probably here, because this screams to me that these are maybe like a little more rare in these stories that they're talking about, is because people tend to go for the hot chocolate. So I guess this would just be like, oh, they're not drinking hot chocolate. They're drinking something else.
Yeah, I feel like where you would see this is anything that has like a holiday party, like at a holiday office party or something. Mm-hmm. I feel like it's always quintessentially like eggnog and maybe cider at those. Right. Instead of like out and about walking down Main Street, it's always like hot chocolate.
Hot chocolate. Yeah. Finish your drink when someone has amnesia.
Oh boy, amnesia plus holiday romance is a big order. There are a lot of amnesia stories, but I actually don't know if I've read or watched an amnesia plus Christmas or Hanukkah
I can't think of one offhand, but I have seen a Hallmark movie. I do remember a Hallmark movie from, I guess it would have been a few years ago. I forget if it was Tori Spelling was in it, but it was some, 90s person. And I think she was supposed to be like an author. She was like a best-selling author, and she just has to get away from the spotlight for a little bit. And then by doing that, she gets into like a car accident or something and winds up in small town, middle of nowhere, falls for the single dad at Christmas, doesn't know who she is, whatever. Yes. But yeah, I've said it before, I am not an amnesia romance fan, so that one's not for me. This one is for me, though. Finish your drink when there's a dog.
Oh my gosh, yes.
This one could apply to romance books, but it definitely applies to holiday romance movies, and that is finish your drink when there's actually a lead who isn't white.
Damn.
We're just gonna let that one hang there. I will say, when I do curate the 12 Days of Boobsmas, I am very purposeful in making sure that I choose at least one Hanukkah romance every year. I try to choose at least a handful of interracial romances, Black romance, BIPOC romance. So I will say there are a few romance picks this year on the 12 Days of Boobsmas, as there have been in years past, where I do my best to make sure at least one of the leads isn't white. In fact, I try to find at least one book where neither of them are white. So
yes.
I can't speak for Hallmark, but
yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know about Hallmark, but on the romance side, I do think like the romance side has grown so much in that sense.
Yes.
Obviously still a long way to go, but I'm very happy that there is plenty of recommendations for that as far as romance books go. That post from Talk About Swoon has a bunch of them in there. And then we chose a YA one for our book club pick recently that I am really excited about. It actually was like sold out. We had to do it as an audiobook because we couldn't order copies for the shop. But Love in Winter Wonderland by Abiola Bello. I hope I'm saying that right. The cover alone is just like the most precious thing I've ever seen.
Aww.
Rolling ladder bookshelves, like pink but still holiday vibes, which is one of my favorite. I love like off-brand holiday cover colors. And they're like hanging Christmas lights on all these bookshelves.
I love that. I love that. I'll add it to my list. I will say too, I know you gave Amanda from Talk About Swoon a shout out, and I will say Shades and Pages also primarily recommends Black romance, and she has a great selection of holiday romance recommendations. You know, I mean, really surround yourself and your feeds on Instagram, on TikTok, wherever you might be with BIPOC creators, and you will have no shortage of BIPOC romances to read. And that applies to holiday romance as well. So if that's not something that you're doing now, if you're not being as intentional with who you are surrounding yourself with, and that includes your online spaces, that might be a goal to make for 2024 if you're looking to diversify your reading a little bit.
And like interact with that content when you see it in your page, because the more you interact with it, the more like the algorithms are going to start promoting similar kinds of content to you. And suddenly like your For You page or whatever has a very different feel and probably has a lot of books that you don't see on like classic, very whitewashed, book talk or whatever.
And we all have to start somewhere. And if you're only finding your romance recommendations from the TikTok table at Barnes and Nobles, like chances are your romance reading selection isn't the most diverse, and that's okay. When I started reading romance, these weren't even options. I went to the library and that's all I had, and of course it was mostly historical romance written by white women because that at that time is what was being published. And so as things are changing and as we're seeing especially this huge push with indie romance and indie romance writers who are getting their books picked up and republished and distributed through traditional publishers, do your due diligence and do some research. Like Brianna said, surround yourself with people, but also engage with that content because then it will become more accessible for you to find it. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing a few cursory Google searches for, whatever it is you are looking to read more of. And we have bookstores like Brianna's that will help you out as well. And you can always contact me if you want some help finding romances that fit whatever it is you're looking for. We are all here to spread the gospel of romance. So let us help you do that.
Yes. And I will say, you can always ask any indie bookstore for whatever it is you're looking for, even if you don't see it on the shelf, even if it's not a specific title, even if it's just a vibe. And they're always so happy to help you with that. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I've got a lot more on this list, but I think that's the perfect way to wrap things up. So I will save this list. I will share it. I will maybe make some adjustments to it to create our own romance novel version of it. I don't know. And I think that just about does it for us. So thank you so much for joining me, Brianna, for this day of Boobsmas.
Yes, thanks for having me. It is so fun being on these. I love chatting with you and interacting with everyone who listens as well.
Well, and we only have one more thing to do before I let you go. On the 5th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 5 penis rings. Just what I wanted.
On the 5th day of Boobsmas, my lover gave to me 5